The City of Menasha is pleased to present video recordings of City Council and City Committee meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.menashawi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the Mayor's Office, 920-967-3608. Contacting their city alderman. Contact information appears on the city website. Or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for your patience as we're working out some quirks with new technology. Would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Snyder, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenik. Here. Alderman Perkins. Here. Alderman Lewis. Here. Alderman Marshall. Here. Alderman Grotti. Here. Alderman Rapella. Here. Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Eisenach. Here. All are present.
Thank you, Clerk. The first item of business is a public hearing. Proposed resolution authorizing public improvement and levying special assessment against benefited property, third addition to the Woodland Hills subdivision. So at this time, I am going to open up this public hearing. Would anybody wish to speak on this public hearing item? The floor is yours to come and speak at the podium. Just ask that you state your first, last name, and address, and you can speak as long as you'd like. And again, public hearing now for the proposed resolution authorizing public improvement and levying special assessment against benefited property, third addition to the Woodland Hills subdivision. Going once, going twice. Last opportunity. This public hearing is now closed. Next, we'll move on to E, which is report of department officers, department heads, staff, and consultants. And the first item of business is a presentation. Tonight, we will have a presentation, Understanding the Round Goby in Northeast Wisconsin. Chris Acey with the Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance is going to give us a presentation. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Should I use this mic?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody, for inviting me here to speak tonight. My name is Chris Acey. I'm from the Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance. My job is as an aquatic invasive species educator. So one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is the round goby, which is an invasive species, a plant or animal that doesn't belong in Wisconsin, that maybe causes problems. It hurts either the economy, the environment, or the economics. So at Fox Wolf, we have this invasive species program focused on outreach and prevention, and I cover 5 different counties. So I work Brown County, Calumet, Fond du Lac, Outagamie, and Winnebago counties, really focused on that outreach and prevention. I've been talking to a couple other folks that are here from the public. They know Fox Wolf. We are a nonprofit of 10 individuals up in Appleton, working on watershed improvements on all kinds of things. So within Fox Wolf, we have lots of different programs. My focus is on the invasive species. Wanted to give a little bit of history and background information on the round goby, make sure we're all on the same field as we start to talk about this important issue here in Menasha. So the round goby is native to the Black and Caspian Sea, and how they got here is really a story of how a lot of invasive species get here. Large cargo ships, especially from the 1960s to the 1980s, were not regulated very well. Meaning a lot of species that live near the water or near that top part of the water could be moving into cargo ships. So these cargo ships are constantly taking on water and letting water off trying to get the right ballast to sit at the right height in the water to make sure that they get the best gas efficiency, make sure they're not toppling over, all those kinds of things. As these ships are sucking up water and letting water off, they're doing this in their different ports. For many, many years, this was unregulated. So what actually happened is the round goby, when at one point it was near the surface of the Black and Caspian Sea, got sucked up by one of these large cargo ships. The large cargo ship then did what large cargo ships do, and they kind of go all around the world, do their trips. In this case, a cargo ship at some point came to the United States and came to the Great Lakes. In this instance, that cargo ship then offloaded its cargo, and unbeknownst to them, offloaded round gobies from their ballast tank into the water body as well. So now we have round gobies, they've made it into the Great Lakes. But they're still pretty far from Wisconsin. So from there, they had to do the natural migration. Maybe they were found moving between water bodies once they found a way to get past Niagara Falls through the Welland Canal. In the 1990s was the first finding of this fish here in Wisconsin, in the United States, excuse me. And it was found in the St. Clair River. So from there, it naturally migrated to all of the Great Lakes. Why ballast water? Well, these invasive species are really finding interesting ways to survive. This is a freshwater fish, I'd like to emphasize that. And these ships that are doing these ballast water transfers are taking up salt water sometimes and sometimes fresh water. So the idea for a long time, before we started regulating these ballast water containers on these ships, was that species wouldn't be able to survive. We now know that that's incorrect. We have a lot of invasive species that have been introduced into Wisconsin this way. Zebra mussels, for instance, round goby. So the round goby in its life stages as an adult, it likes to live along the bottom of water. It lives near rocky and hard substances. And then as larva, it'll actually, during the day, be down near the bottom of the water. Couldn't be seen. It's harder to be found to be eaten if you're living at the bottom of a lake or river. And then at night, it'll actually go up to feed at the top of this water body. So these fish then are doing this naturally pelagic movement. They're going from the bottom of the water during the day to the top of the water at night, and then back down to the bottom of the water during that day again. So if those cargo ships, which are working at all hours of the night, are doing that ballast water exchange when those larvae are up near the top of the surface of the water, that's how they got into those cargo tanks on those ships, and then got over to the United States. So what's the big deal? With these round goby, there's been several studies on them, a lot of different scientific literature focused on finding out what is the impact of these round gobies. Well, they can be, they're a smallish fish. At age 1, they're about an inch in length, but by age 5, they can grow larger than 5 inches. In preparing for this presentation, I actually talked to a couple folks from DNR who last year found round gobies that were a foot long living in the Mississippi River. Usually these fish are about the length of a hand. That's about as big as they get. So it's unusual that they get as large as they've been found in the Mississippi River. The ecological impacts, these can be rather broad. I'm going to dive in a little bit more later to some of the scientific literature, but on a surface level, they can outcompete native fish. They like to eat fish eggs, and they're eating on the same food sources as a lot of our smaller fish that are kind of forming the base of our food web. They eat fish eggs, they eat mussels, they eat invertebrates. They're really a generalist eater, and they reproduce really, really rapidly. They're known to take over habitat from other fish. They like those crevices, those rocky areas, and they tend to be very aggressive toward other species. A couple scientific literature papers have shown that this round goby can actually clear a nest of smallmouth bass in as little as 15 minutes. As soon as a smallmouth bass is maybe fished off of its nest, as what happens in the spring, round gobies have been known to go in and clear a nest out completely within 15 minutes. And really quickly, we could ask the people of Green Bay about this. They'd concur with us that gobies become the most abundant fish in near-shore environments. If you tried to go up to Green Bay and do shoreline fishing, you would catch mostly gobies compared to bluegill, compared to some of the other fish that people like to fish for. We look at some of the other impacts, looking at a broader scale. These gobies do eat zebra mussels. When I first tell this, people's face light up. They're just like, oh, wait, zebra mussels are a problem in a lot of our lakes and rivers. If gobies are going to eat them, that's going to be great. That makes one invasive species eating the other. But the problem is they're actually changing the energy flow of our lakes. So the mussels are eating algae, they're depositing mercury at the bottom of our food web, at the bottom of a lake, and then gobies are actually eating those zebra mussels and moving those contaminants up into the fish that we're actually fishing, walleye, sturgeon, things like that. Is it a perfect scenario? Unfortunately, no. What we've seen in the Mississippi River is we get this bioaccumulation of mercury in those large fish as well as large bird die-offs because birds are also eating this round goby. So a lot of complex food webs are happening with this round goby. One of the biggest things that we're seeing on Little Lake Butamore is we're getting calls from people saying, I've caught a round goby. Then the next day we'll get a call from somebody on Lake Winnebago where the gobies aren't currently found saying, we have round gobies in Lake Winnebago, we've been catching them for 15 years. Well, it turns out we have a native fish, this molted sculpin on the bottom right, that looks almost exactly like a round goby, but there's a few key differences. I'm going to briefly talk about these. You can ask me more later on, but there's some differences in fish structure, in fin structure, that make these two different fish species. So we get a lot of false reports of round goby in Lake Winnebago. For folks that are unfamiliar with what's been going on with round gobies were first found in Little Lake Butamore in 2015. They were, like I mentioned before, caught in the Great Lakes in 1994. And then all of a sudden in Little Lake Butamore, they popped up in 2015. And a lot of folks were saying, wait a minute, that doesn't quite make sense. How did it take them so long to get down the Fox River and get to Little Lake Butamore? Well, that wasn't the case. If we look at a cross structure of northeast Wisconsin here, you can see the bottom right of this picture is Green Bay. This picture is from FRNSA, the Fox River Navigational System Authority. You can see the elevation differences of our river. This is the Fox River. So it's flowing from Lake Winnebago on the left-hand side of this picture down to Green Bay on the right-hand side. So round gobies, if they did come from Green Bay, would have to go through about 15 different locks to get all the way up to Little Lake Butamore and the Menasha lock. What most likely happened, looking at population data, looking at long-term monitoring trends that have been ongoing with Lawrence University and the University of Green Bay, most likely a round goby was accidentally introduced into Little Lake Butamore. I mentioned that a lot of people in Green Bay are catching these fish. A lot of them are now illegally using those fish to try and catch largemouth bass, walleye, things like that. So the understanding right now, the belief is somebody that illegally fished with them up in Green Bay brought them as bait, brought them in a bait bucket to Little Lake Butamore, and at the end of their fishing day, dumped them out into Little Lake Butamore. That would explain why they got past the 14 locks, including the Rapid Croche Dam, which is around Wrightstown, that has been permanently sealed since 1988. So this fish didn't transverse the Fox River. It popped up in Little Lake Butamore as the first population. And since that time, we've actually seen it spreading now down the Fox River, so it's now filling in up to the Rapid Croche Dam. So we're nearly positive that it wasn't a natural migration that this fish got introduced. The DNR did a large-scale sampling effort. It confirmed there was a population there. The hope originally was it was going to be one or two fish. Unfortunately, it turned into there looked to be a population of at least 70 individuals. It was a reoccurring population. And so the Fox River Navigational System Authority and the DNR closed the Menasha lock to comply with invasive species regulations in Wisconsin. They wanted to make sure that the goby couldn't spread into Lake Winnebago and therefore 17% of Wisconsin's waterways. As we're familiar with this area, I always like to give an overview. So this is drone footage of Lake Winnebago and Little Lake Butamore. So you see Little Lake Butamore on the left-hand side of this photo. You see the canal that's connecting the locks on this part of the picture. And then we have Lake Winnebago that's further on the right-hand side. So the DNR did some intensive sampling to find out, to make sure that the goby wasn't already in Lake Winnebago. It was in Little Lake Butamore. They did some dyeing samples. They dyed water to make sure that there was no possible pipe connections. In short, they made sure that the round goby wasn't in Lake Winnebago after that 2015 finding. Since that time, every year there's been intensive sampling to see, are there round gobies already in Lake Winnebago? And the answer has been no. Reports to DNR, each time it's been a sculpin, like we talked about, one of those native fish, compared to the round goby, as well as the monitoring studies from Lawrence University and the University of Green Bay using angling, using traps, using seine nets down in the water. Nothing has shown that there's a round goby population in Lake Winnebago. There was a Menasha lock proposal. This is by FERNZA, the Fox River Navigational System Authority. They wanted to resume operation of the Menasha lock. They're the ones in charge of all the locks that go between Little Lake Butamore and Green Bay. They wanted to be able to reopen this lock. There was talks of building a boat lifting system, if you will. The idea would be you drive your boat right up to the lock, then straps would go underneath your boat, you'd lift it up, and then carry the boat to the other side. For some reason, probably insurance, folks said that's not a good idea. We probably don't want to be lifting boats out of the water doing that all kind of thing. So FERNZA then said, okay, let's look at maybe a pulsed DC current and water flow, maybe some kind of electric fish barrier. This has shown promise for keeping the Asian carp out of the Great Lakes, if you're familiar with that, near Chicago. So FERNZA wanted to do something similar here at Little Lake Butamore. Recently, this was June of 2024, FERNZA stated on their website that they were going to put the project on hold indefinitely. As not a member of FERNZA, I'm not sure if they're planning on reopening that discussion at any point, but right now, due to costs and a couple other things, they said we're not going to be looking at reopening the Menasha lock using this system of a electrical barrier system. So here's where it gets tricky, right? Because we're dealing with one fish. What's the big deal? What's the problem? Well, like we talked about, there's the potential ecological impacts of goby on the Winnebago system. Doing a deep dive into the scientific literature, we know my favorite quote was from a paper that said, the influence of invasive species like ground goby on the growth of walleye and yellow perch was approximately equal to being likely to be positive, negative, or have no effect. Really what this author was saying is, across all scientific literature, in some cases goby populations increase walleye and yellow perch populations and growths. In other cases, nothing happened, and in other cases, it was a negative impact. So the question really is, what would happen if the round goby got into Little Lake Butamore? Into Lake Winnebago. There's been groups that are concerned with how the goby might change the system. Looking at the economic side of things, we have studies from 2006, this was done by UW Extension, that found that angling produces over $234 million annually to the region, about 4,300 jobs. With inflation, that's approximately $364 million today. But FERNZA also wanted to look and say, wait a minute, our mission is to reopen these locks, to develop and operate this navigational system. We also know that we're having an economic input and economic priorities in Menasha and across the lakes. So these boaters also want to use these locks. Another study was done that they were able to find that annually about 19,000 passengers are using the entire lock system. And they funded a 2016 economic study that found with all of the locks open, including Rapid Croche, we'd get about $290 million over a 10-year period, so $29 million annually, with about 6,300 jobs with the locks being open. If we have a situation, the paper talks about this, if we have a scenario where just the Menasha lock is opened and everything else stays the same, it'd be about $42 million to the economy over a 10-year period, so 4.2 annually. So there's concern about if the goby gets into Lake Winnebago and disrupts the fishing systems, how would that impact the economics of angling that's being brought to the area? So it's really an in-depth conversation that a lot of people are interested in. And there's future issues as well. There's sea lamprey and a couple other invasive species that are in Green Bay. I'm not going to talk about them too much here, but if the locks were to reopen, are we looking at other invasive species getting into Lake Winnebago as well? So all that being said, my role at Foxwolf is really bringing information to people. So I appreciate being asked to present tonight. I'm happy to contact and put you in contact with folks at the Fox River Navigational System Authority who make those decisions about opening and closing the locks, as well as folks that are with the DNR on the Round Goby team who are also making those decisions. So again, happy to make those connections and provide information to folks as much as possible. One other thing that I would like to mention is to help folks understand, we have a Round Goby frequently asked questions document that I have quite a few copies here tonight. If anybody would like one of those to look over what's the issue with Round Gobies and more information, we have that here for folks as well. Round Gobies, I like to sum it up with the impacts takeaway of the food web changes that might happen with Round Gobies. It really becomes complex with non-native species. Sometimes you get unexpected effects or little effects. So maybe sometimes nothing happens, and sometimes major ripples happen when you get these invasive species in new areas. With that, that's the end of my presentation, and happy to provide information for anybody that would like it.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you. I know you're here just to bring information. So when I say these things, it's not at you. Okay. First of all, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. We tried to get you here earlier, but glad you showed up. One thing I did learn today was there are 2 species out there that look similar, so I wasn't aware of that. So that's interesting because I have friends that swear that they've caught the goby already. So, and that's probably what they had. When you initially started, you talked about the ecological, the economic, and the development. But there's an economic and development problem that's because the locks is closed for the city of Menasha. Mm-hmm. We built a multi-million-dollar marina here, and you know there's other aspects other than fishing on our Great Lakes or mm-hmm. all our lakes, and boating is one of them, and that's not being. There should be a study about how that's affect us. Mm-hmm. It's really hurt Menasha big time. Not only that, but the clarity of our water, not allowing the canal to have a flow. There was a guy here before, and I said, why can't we at least have the locks designed in a way where it would at least flow into Little Lake Butelemore, so the water's at least moving, because right now it's just sitting stagnant. And it was great pictures that you showed us, because when you showed us the aerial view, what did you see? A green canal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess I'll just conclude it with that. I mean, great presentation. Appreciate that you came here. I did learn a little bit, but I'm still a little upset about the whole thing because it's been 10 darn years already. Mm-hmm. And it seems like every season there's an attitude about changing, then winter comes and it's all dropped. The electric thing, I think, is ridiculous. And you obviously know that we have several invasive species throughout our systems, and sometimes they end up being a positive. I've heard that about the zebra mussel even. I've now heard that even about the goby. So who do you believe? So again, thanks for being here.
Any other questions for Chris? All right, seeing none, Chris, thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here to give our presentation.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. And in just a moment. Awesome. Thank you, Clerk. Next, we'll move on to 2, which is minutes to receive and communications. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like for us to receive minutes A through G and communications H through Q.
All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Grotti. Is there any discussion? Alderman Sevenick?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Next is F, which is public comment on any matter of concern to the city. You would have 5 minutes to speak. We just ask that you state your first and last name and address. Would anybody like to speak at the podium this evening? Yeah, if you'd like to speak, please just step up to the podium. And the mic is already on.
Okay. I hope this is the right time for the notice of proposed parking changes on Water Street.
You can speak.
Now and then? Okay. So I received a notice on the notice is notified April 4th. I received this on the Saturday, the day after, about the meeting tonight. Number one, I thought that was a very short notice, very short. And secondly, we just did a beautiful job on Water Street. It's never looked so nice. I've been there since 1967, and I can't believe that we would build a street that we cannot park on. This is a legacy, older neighborhood. A lot of them only have a driveway for one car to park. So, or if you have guests to come and you can't park on one side of the street, it doesn't make sense to me. I used to run a business there. I don't any longer, but I do have a property there that I do rent. I think it would have negative impact on us that we cannot park on at least one side of the street. You know, it is a neighborhood of residential and commercial property. So I'd like to see that we could park on the north side of the street. There are some bays that were made to park on the south side. So I'd like to ask Rebecca Nichols to remove her recommendation that we can't park on the north side of the street. Secondly, I don't know, and I don't understand this unless, is this a time for me to ask the Public Works a question?
This isn't
well?
the Q&A, but you are welcome to continue speaking and propose your question, and I'm sure that the Public Works Director will answer it at a later time.
Okay. I don't understand why they made, on the north side of the street, a mountable rolled curb from Barlow to Lush, where the rest of the area has regular conventional curb and gutter. I don't quite understand why that was developed that way. So hopefully he can answer that for me. And that's it for now.
Sir, could you please state your first and last name and address?
My name's David Van Lin, and I own 206 Water Street.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else think, yeah?
Tall guy. My name is Dennis Wepfer. My address is Lakeshore Drive. A couple of comments, and Chris, I appreciate your presentation on the Gobies. I have some issues with it. Number one, a lot of the data is old. Oh, by the way, I will tell you where I'm coming from. I live on the other side of the lock. I enjoy coming up to Lake Winnebago, as do all of my neighbors, as do a lot of people that live up here going down into Little Lake Butamore. A couple of questions I have. If the Round Goby, sea lamprey, alewives have invaded the St. Lawrence Seaway, all of the Great Lakes, the Bay of Green Bay, and all the way up to Rapid Crochet, and yet these are still vibrant ecosystems. What makes a Round Goby such a tremendous threat to Lake Winnebago's system? when their own studies say that you got a third of a chance that it's going to make it better, a third of the chance it's not going to do anything, and a third of the chance it's going to make it bad. And I understand you got to protect against the bad. But it seems like we've taken a lot of effort to close that lock, and in the end, those round gobies are going to make it past that lock. Of course, the next thing is, well, we got to protect against the next invasive species. That argument can go on until we are protecting against the Loch Ness monster, which, that could happen too. So my comments are, we got to be a little bit realistic here. And we got to update some of our studies. We got to look realistically. Look at the zebra mussels. Those were supposed to destroy the entire ecosystem. Now he says those are good for us. So what's the answer? And in the meantime, there's a lot of boat traffic, a lot of people that use or would like to use this lock system, which I believe was either the first or the second most used lock in the entire system until it closed. I urge you as a city to push for some reevaluation of these studies. Get somebody who has the authority to say yes or no and take another look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else in the gallery wish to speak this evening?
My name is Doug Bodway, and I own Valley Marine Mart, and I'm up here to talk about the parking deal. So we're hoping that we can stop this because it's going to have another impact on our business. Last year, we lost a lot because of the construction, and this is just going to hamper it some more. So there's various things that I wrote down that contribute to the business. And the big thing is the customers that are coming, that are dropping off boats. I can't always get out there to move them, so they're going to sit there for a little while. I don't want the police coming giving tickets to customers. It's hard enough as it is. And I can go on with all different things that the trucks that are coming to deliver merchandise, trailers, boats, motors. We have to unload that stuff, so they're going to be parking there for a while. There's enough room. I measured it. We have 26 feet from the curb to the other side, to the north side. There's plenty of room for cars to go past if there is somebody parked there. So I don't see any reason why we have to have that. So I'm hoping that Rebecca rescinds this. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else this evening wish to speak during the public comment on any matter of concern to the city? All right, seeing none, we will move on then to minutes to approve from the March 17th meeting. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
Like for the council, go on to approve the common council minutes of 3/17/25.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Rapella. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Next, we'll move on to the Board of Public Works from March 17th. Is there a motion for item 1? Alderman Sevenick.
Yes, thank you. Move that we approve the policy of recognition of donations and contributions to city landmarks, facilities, and property to the Common Council.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Rapella. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 3 is a change order, again from the Board of Public Works. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the change order to Advance Construction Incorporated, contract unit number 2024-01. This is the Broad Street Storm Sewer Construction. This is an addition of $3,553.75. This is the first change order.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Rapella. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Item 4 is a payment from the Board of Public Works. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
I'll move for the payment to Advanced Construction Incorporated. This is contract unit number 2024-01, Broad Street Storm Sewer Construction, in the amount of $96,317.75. And it says final payment, but we'll see.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Rapella. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Item 5 is another payment, again from the Board of Public Works. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
The Board of Public Works recommends the payment to Cardinal Construction, contract unit number 2024-10. That's for the Jefferson Park Shelter construction in the amount of $94,684.60. That's payment number 2.
All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Grotti. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Item 6 is a assessment report for the third edition of the Woodland Hills subdivision. Is there a motion? All right, Alderman Rapella.
Make a motion for the third edition to Woodland Hills subdivision assessment report.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Rapella, seconded by Alderman Sevenick. Is there any discussion? Alderman Rapella?
No.
No? All right, seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. And last item from the Board of Public Works is the RFP for the Racine Street Bridge Comprehensive Assessment. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
The City Council recommends issuing the attached RFP to solicit engineering consultant firms to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the Racine Street Bridge.
Is there a second? Motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Perkins. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Next is item 8, which is from the Administration Committee from March 17th. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Move to approve increasing the cost of a tuberculosis skin test from $25 to $40 per test, effective for tests scheduled on or after April 8th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Nichols, seconded by Alderman Eisenach. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Repella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Alderman Grady, did you mean to click your mic? Oh, all right, you're ready. Next is item 9 from the Personnel Committee. This is to request a permanent add of 1 full-time new sworn officer position to the Menasha Police Department. Is there a motion? Alderman Grady.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, move to approve the request for permanently adding 1 full-time sworn officer position to Menasha Police Department roster.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Grady, seconded by Alderman Perkins. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Repella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Alderman Sevenick. Motion carries 8-0.
All right, Alderman Sevenick.
The reason I did that was to show this body and the new council members that when there is a situation like this, sometimes it does matter when you vote, and you may not want to vote at a certain point, so you have that option, so you can pass. But what the clerks do is that from time to time, the clerk, each week, now next council meeting, most likely the start will be with Alderman Perkins. But of course, to get around, I'm only bringing up this situation now because in the future, we won't be needing to do that at all because we will be able to vote with your finger.
Correct.
So right now, that's not being done because we have a whole new system.
Alrighty, so Special Administration Committee, item 10, which is what you saw earlier. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Move to approve the First Amendment to the development agreement between the City of Menasha and Sugar Maple Property Development, LLC, for the residential subdivision development of the parcels listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion was made by Alderman Nichols, seconded by Alderman Eisenach. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Repella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
All right, and then last item is item 11 from the Special Administration Committee. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Move to approve the memorandum of understanding for interim health officer by and between Calumet County and City of Menasha for the term of April 8th through May 16th, 2025.
Is there a second? Second. All right, motion was made by Alderman Nichols, seconded by Alderman Perkins. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Repella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you, Clerk. Next, we'll move on to I, which is action items, and the action item for this evening is accounts payable. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Move to approve the accounts payable and payroll for the term of March 14th through April 3rd, 2025, in the amount of $2,296,027.19.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Nichols, seconded by Alderman Eisenach. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Repella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Next is K, which is ordinances and resolutions, and the first one is R-6-25. Is there a motion? Alderman Repella.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to approve R625, a final resolution authorizing public improvements and levying special assessments against benefited property. This is the third addition to Woodland Hills under Section 66.0703 Wisconsin statutes, and it's introduced by myself.
Is there a second? Second. All right, motion was made by Alderman Rapella, seconded by Alderman Marshall. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Next is item 2, which is R825. Is there a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Move to approve R825, a resolution approving continuing appropriations, and this is the 2024 fund balance reservations.
Is there a second? All right, motion was made by Alderman Nichols, seconded by Alderman Grotti. Is there any discussion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. I would just like to ask Director Sassman to explain what this annual resolution is for.
Director Sassman.
Thank you. This is a resolution that we bring forward annually about this time. Basically, it preserves funds from the prior budget year and sets those funds aside for projects that either could not take place, they were not completed, or purchases that were not made. There are 5 items that are in relation to the general fund. I do have a brief description for each of those. And as far as our year-end numbers, our 24 budget can support these fund balance reservations.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Lastly, for ordinances and resolutions is 3, which is R-10-25. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like for the City of Menasha Common Council to approve R-10-25, a resolution supporting legislative action and funding for the Racine Street Bridge, B-70-324 in Menasha.
All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Nichols. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if we could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Perkins. Alderman Lewis. Alderman Marshall. Alderman Grotti. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Motion carries 8-0.
Next is appointments, and there is one this evening. Is there a motion? Alderman Sevenick.
I'll move for your appointment of, or reappointment of Charles Gifford to the Appleton Redevelopment Authority, the Central Advisory Committee, for a term of 4/8/25 to 4/8/27.
Is there a second? Second. All right, motion was made by Alderman Sevenick, seconded by Alderman Perkins. Is there any discussion?
I was just going to say she needs to slide the thing up a little bit.
Could you
Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able
scroll
to.
that, please? Thank you. Is there any discussion on the appointment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. And then next is public comment on any matter listed on this specific agenda. Would anybody like to speak? You would have 5 minutes. We just ask that you come to the podium and state your first and last name and address. All right. Seeing none, then I would, if there's anything for items for next meeting agenda, or I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Motion was made to adjourn by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman Eisenach. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned at 7:22. Thank you, everybody.
The City of Menasha is pleased to present video recordings of City Council and City Committee meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.menashawi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the Mayor's Office, 920-967-3608. Contacting their city alderman. Contact information appears on the city website. Or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.